After the last season that came to an end with its tail between its legs, the Game of Thrones universe makes a return with a much-awaited spin-off series, House of the Dragon. Finally, right? But don't be fooled, HOD is not GOT. Set roughly 200 years before the events of the fantasy world that stole all our time and attention for 8 whole seasons, this new show is a prequel. It is far from the Westeros we came to know too well, with its Targaryen ruler. The kingdom has a different set of very much silver-haired characters, and obviously lots of dragons. Even without familiar faces, millions of Game of Thrones fans are hooked right back in. But there are still some sneaky little bits that you may have missed out on. So stay tuned as we dive in deep to things that might have flown by you in the first couple of episodes of the new show. The first Easter egg is actually about a dragon egg. You might have missed this parallel to the original show in the first episode. Queen Aemma is heavily pregnant at this time. That baby looks like it's going to pop out any day now. Unfortunately, we come to know it's a difficult one, just like pretty much all her previous ones, and it ends up in a rather gory, bloody birth, killing both mother and child. But before all the tragedy, there was a small moment shared between the king and his prego queen. There always is one of these before something bad happens on TV, where she tells her husband that she wouldn't be surprised if she hatches an actual dragon. Sudden flashback, or flash forward, in our minds to Dany hatching her 3 dragon babies at the cow's funeral pyre. Was this predicted by the queen 200 years ago? Next, Blackfyre and Dark Sister make their subtle appearances. Do you remember that scene when Princess Rhaenyra sneaks off to see her uncle, Prince Daemon? You'd think they'd have a rocky relationship since he isn't on such good terms with her father, the king, but you quickly get a sense that they're quite fond of each other. And this is made much more clear when Daemon places a necklace made of Valerian steel around his niece's neck. Incest vibes are strong, but more on that later. He tells her that they now both possess a piece of their ancestry. After that, his mistress, Mysaria, tries to boost his confidence by reminding him that he's the only one who can wield Dark Sister, so he can't be replaced. Even though these 2 remarks are subtle, viewers are likely to conclude that Dark Sister is Daemon's sword. Some may be surprised to learn that only 2 such swords are left within the Targaryens, Dark Sister and Blackfyre. The former is held by Daemon, while the latter is held by his kingly brother. Valerian steel is strong, light, and is always razor sharp. Makes sense since it's the only thing that can kill a White Walker, along with dragonglass. It's also extremely rare, making this piece of jewelry both a generous and symbolic gift. The 2 swords are even mentioned in the original show. Arya talks about the sword with Tywin Lannister. Speaking of Arya, do you remember her direwolf? When the princess and her bestie Alicent are studying in the garden, a familiar name pops up. Princess Nymeria, female warrior and pioneer of House Martell. Does the name ring a bell? The OG fans will recognize it instantly as the name of one of the Stark's direwolves. Aside from being a fun throwback, Nymeria's mention may actually refer to one of the character's spin-offs, 10,000 Ships. Although it isn't confirmation, it could be a hint at what's to come among the many spin-offs. The Dracarys that sends shivers down our spines. The word echoes through many episodes of Game of Thrones in dramatic pivotal moments when Khaleesi needs her babies to do a job. Given that House of the Dragon is about Targaryens, we expect to hear the High Valerian word again, but this time it's in a slightly different context. During the emotional funeral of Queen Aemma and the heir for a day, we hear Rhaenyra command the dragon to light the funeral pyre with Dracarys. It explores the relationship between the Targaryens and their dragons beyond flying and fighting. It's a touching moment, really. The Targaryens knew winter was coming. While there aren't many plot twists in the House of the Dragon premiere, a heart-to-heart between the king and his only living child has a major reveal. He passes down the generational secret about Aegon Targaryen's prophetic dream, which foretells the arrival of the Winter and the Night King and his White Walkers. He referred to it as a song of ice and fire. Now, as you must remember, this is a clear reference to the impending arrival of winter in Game of Thrones. A Targaryen, according to Aegon, must be on the throne to defend the 7 kingdoms from the undead army. And the dagger Arya used to destroy the Night King. Speaking of the White Walkers, do you remember how they were destroyed? A Valerian steel dagger is another weapon from Game of Thrones that appears in the premiere of the prequel show. Viserys is seen carrying the dagger that fans of Game of Thrones will recognize as the one Arya Stark used to off the Night King in that awesome sneak attack. The prince may have stolen one of Dany's dragon eggs. Things got heated when the titular rogue prince stole a dragon egg straight from King's Landing's dragon pit in the 2nd episode. Things start to get spicier when it's revealed which egg he chose to flee with. In subtitled Valerian, one of the dragon attendants is shown to tell Rhaenyra that the egg belonged to Dreamfire. Prince Daemon stole the egg intended for his nephew, a.k.a. the heir for a day. Prince Balon's cradle. Rhaenyra chose it and everything. This goes far beyond than a few cheeky shenanigans. It's a grave insult to the family. But there's more to it than it seems. Yes, the dragon's name is really Dreamfire. What, does it sound dumb? Well, you were fine with Drogon, so chill. Dreamfire was initially written by Rhaena, the sister of old King Jaehaerys, who was quite the character. She had the misfortune of first getting married off to her brother to quell rumors of her homosexuality, because that's worse than incest, apparently, and then marrying Maegor the Cruel. She would eventually marry Andro Farman, but she was more fond of Androw's sister, Alyssa. Alyssa Farman had a daring spirit and wished to fund a journey that would take her east to the mythical place like Yiti, but Rhaena refused to give her the gold. So she did the only thing she could think of and stole 3 dragon eggs from the hatcheries and then fled like a true night thief. It's unclear in George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood whether these 3 eggs were Dreamfires, but given Alyssa's ease of access to Dreamfire, it sort of makes sense. So the implication is that Alyssa sold off the dragon eggs and then eventually ended up in the hands of the rich folks of Essos, who had no idea how to hatch them. That is until a rich dude in Pentos presented them to a young Khaleesi named Daenerys, who we came to love, then hate. Mind you, that's just a theory, but everything checks out. What about Dreamfire? She is one of the many dragons we will see later in the new series. Her next rider will be a character we haven't met yet. The princess's role as cupbearer is more important than you think. Rhaenyra is annoyed by her father's fixation with producing a male heir, and she appears to be conflicted about her future as a wife and mother at best. Who wouldn't be? She laments the reality that no matter what she does, she will never be a son. And then when a boy is on the way, Alicent asks if she is concerned about her position. She says no, but come on, we all know that the true answer is yes. So when Viserys calls her to inform her that he's decided to make her his heir, she's flabbergasted. The king even apologizes to her for wasting so many years desiring a son when she was already deserving of the throne. Finally, it only took the death of his wife and baby to figure that one out. Her father, the king, warns her that the Iron Throne is the most dangerous place to sit in the 7 kingdoms. After that, a ceremony is held to make it all official. The lords bend the knee and the girl is crowned Princess of Dragonstone. But here's what you might have missed. The princess plays the role of cupbearer for the king's small council in both Fire and Blood and House of the Dragon. The gig may appear to be a task for an intern, but it's actually a position of honor and trust given upon noble boys and girls. The king exposes Rhaenyra to what is primarily classified information as well as the daily goings-on of a monarch. By keeping his little girl around him, he deals with his business. As disguised Arya Stark, another parallel to Rhaenyra, served as Tywin Lannister's cupbearer on the show because he understood she was highborn and admired her wit. You might have noticed the huge skull of Valerian on display. Balerion's massive skull is no tiny point, but its relevance in previous appearances might have been lost on some viewers. Balerion the Black Dread, the dragon that was owned by Aegon the Conqueror, Maegor the Cruel, and finally Viserys himself, was the biggest dragon in the post-conquest period, and, as Viserys puts it, the last living creature to flee Valyria before the Doom. The king questions his daughter about what she sees when looking at his remains. The young princess responds that she sees the Targaryens when she looks at them. She realizes that their family has swayed the kingdoms because they can control the ferocious beasts, but their fortunes fluctuate with the creatures to whom they've entrusted their fate. As for the king, he sees that they are as wonderful as they are terrifying, and he wonders why his people ever attempted to tame them. This imposing skull, that could potentially put any natural history museum display to shame, may be identified by book readers and Game of Thrones fans. Arya stumbles upon it while wandering the cellars of the Red Keep, and Cersei and Qyburn plan their attack on the Khaleesi's dragons from Balerion's crypt. In other words, despite the devastation that has befallen King's Landing and the 7 kingdoms as a whole over the past 2 centuries, the Black Dread still rests in peace. That's kind of nice to know. There's a warning in the model room. King Viserys, a history buff, is building, or maybe commissioning, an intricate model of Valyria and other now extinct dragon-riding families. During one of the visits, he mansplains the project to the little lady who has clearly been sent to seduce him. The king waxes poetic about how Valyria, like Dragonstone, was developed into a volcano so that its people could be near the source of their magic and power. He talks about blood mages and a civilization of 1,000 dragons. Alicent wants to know whether he believes Westeros could become another Valyria. He says it depends, Valyria at its peak or fall. Yikes. Viserys considers his own kingdom of 10 dragons to be falling apart after 100 years and declares, "The glory of old Valyria will never be seen again." Perhaps not the glory, but the arrogance and ruin might be. He believes that ruling over peace entails throwing feasts and tourneys rather than making difficult but crucial decisions. Meanwhile, all 7 of the Hells are about to break loose. There's a symbolic moment when he drops and breaks a dragon figurine and misinterprets the young lady's ambition for kindness when she gets it fixed. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. And that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more TV news. We'll see you next time. Bye.